Hello, everybody. Dr. Shannyn Pearce here with another episode of the Vibrant Health Show, where I teach you high-level education about women's health and then also give you practical steps to start making changes immediately. And today's topic is incredibly important, right? There's so much bad information out there about adrenal fatigue. Some people say it's not a real thing. There's so many women struggling with adrenal issues and they have no idea because it is not properly tested, not properly managed. So today I want to make sure I give you all of the details and all of the education about adrenal function and then give you tips on things you can do immediately to start getting your adrenals under control. So if you are watching live, welcome. If you're watching the replay, feel free to continue to comment. Leave comments below. I will come back and check them out. And today we are going to dive deep into adrenal function. I'm going to teach you all the things because I think it's important that you understand, you know what they're supposed to do, and you know exactly what you can do to start managing your own. So buckle up. Today is going to be chock full of information, but you can always come back and watch the replay, take notes. This information will stay for you. And then again, drop any comments you need in the comment section. And you're also free after the fact to private message me on any of my social media platforms if you have questions. I love connecting with people in the DMs, so feel free to send me messages with any questions that you have. So let's get going. As you jump on today, say hi, tell me where you're watching from. I love the interactions. I'm watching your comments in here as well, and anything I don't get to, I'll come back to. So adrenal fatigue. Now, here's the thing. And if you were to Google adrenal fatigue, you are going to find two very different camps, hello from Kentucky, of people who believe it's either a real thing and causes a lot of problems, or medically, you're going to hear things like adrenal fatigue isn't real. But what I'm going to teach you today is what's crazy is they have a completely different term that means the exact same thing. So they know it's real, but for whatever reason, it's just the term fatigue that they don't believe in. So whether this is a holistic or a medical approach, after I describe to you what it is, turns out it's a very real thing. You can call it what you want, but the actual symptoms, causes, and what they do to the body are incredibly real and something I believe is causing major symptoms and imbalances for women that needs to be addressed. So number one, what are your adrenal glands? I think a lot of people don't even really know that. So they are little triangle-shaped glands that sit on top of your kidneys in your back. Their main job and what they're best known for is managing your stress response. However, they do so much more than that. I also think just thinking that they're for stress is part of the reason we haven't taken them serious enough. But your adrenal glands actually help balance your blood sugars. They help strengthen your immune system. There is a hormone called aldosterone released by the adrenal glands that regulate your blood pressure. So anyone with blood sugar issues, blood pressure issues, immune system issues, in particular, anyone with autoimmune issues, your adrenals are so important for those functions. Not to mention, your adrenals work antagonistically with your thyroid. They literally work off of each other. So if you have a thyroid issue or an adrenal issue, it is going to affect those other areas. And adrenals and hormone balance are huge. Your adrenals do so much more than you realize. We need to take good care of them. Yet, it is one of the things least tested in the medical community, right? So I always ask this question. In particular, if you are someone who has a thyroid issue, because I'm going to teach you about adrenals and thyroid, it's really important, but especially if you have a thyroid issue, but even if you don't, has your doctor ever checked your adrenal function? Tell me in the comments, yes or no. Whenever I ask this question, and I do videos about this on social media all the time, 90% of people say no. That blows my mind. That is not okay, right? If we are checking thyroid, we better be checking adrenals and hormones technically at the same time. See, nope, never. That's insane. Like, that's not okay. We need to be checking adrenal function. They help regulate so many things and they are so important. So they're two little glands with a whole lot of jobs, but when they respond to stress, they tend to take a beating because let's be honest, right? Myself included, who has a lot of stress, even if it's just busyness, right? Like full schedules, families to take care of, like even if they're wonderful stressors, most of us are living a very busy, pretty stress-filled life, and our adrenals take the brunt of that. But once they start to lose function, all of those other areas are going to be affected. Now, here's the other thing. This is definitely a multifactorial, right? Your adrenals, and partly why I think the medical community says adrenal fatigue is not real, is they think we're referencing like, oh, just one day your adrenals decide to not work, they get fatigued, and then it's just like a singular issue. That's not true. I agree with that. Typically, by the time you get to adrenal fatigue, or what the medical community would refer to as adrenal insufficiency, in my mind, they're the same darn thing. They mean the same thing. Use whatever word you want. That's fine. I say adrenal fatigue because I feel like the average person understands that more. Adrenal insufficiency is the medical term that they would be comfortable with. Same thing. But by the time you reach the point that your adrenals are fatigued, it's because you've had several other imbalances that got you to that point. And that's the main thing I'm going to teach you guys today. How do we get there? How do we get to the point that we are actually in adrenal fatigue? Because it doesn't happen overnight, and it's not just your adrenals deciding one day they don't want to work. There are very common things that lead to this situation, this imbalance, and then once we're in this true adrenal fatigue, it's a lot tougher to fix, right? So if we can manage it beforehand, if we can protect ourselves from ever getting there, that's the best case scenario. But a lot of people, especially women, by the time you get to me, normally we're already in that adrenal fatigue state because we went years, if not decades, without properly managing and helping our adrenal glands. So whether you are just, starting into this, or whether it's been years or decades that you've been struggling, I'm going to give you guys tips and things you can do for either side of that puzzle. But just to start off, adrenal fatigue is a real thing. I don't care what anyone else tells you, it is a real thing, and it's affecting millions of women, and it's creating a lot of common symptoms, and we have to address adrenals as part of what we do for women's healthcare. It is just as important to test and manage as your thyroid and your hormones, yet your adrenals are almost never properly tested. And even if you have them tested, they definitely weren't properly managed because, and here's why I think the medical community mostly says it's not a real thing. There's not a medication to fix your adrenals, right? There's a medication to fix your thyroid. There's hormones they can give you to fix your hormones. But what did they give you? Unless you are in a true autoimmune, adrenal crisis, then they might give you steroids or something to do, some stimulation. But as far as just adrenal fatigue type stuff, they don't have an answer for us. So why would they test something they can't help you fix, right? So medically, no, there's not a medication. There's not a treatment or a process that they could give you. But holistically, what I'm going to teach you today, there are tons of very effective, wonderful things you can do holistically that aren't a medical intervention, which I prefer all day, every day. But just because they don't have a treatment for it doesn't mean it's not a real thing, right? So let's dive deeper into this. Let's talk about some signs and symptoms of potential adrenal fatigue. So there's a lot of them, and a lot of them can kind of mimic other conditions, but I believe it's because they go hand in hand. You almost never have adrenal fatigue without also having probably some thyroid stuff going on, some hormone imbalance. You likely have other stressors to the body, because there are two things that lead to adrenal fatigue, and it is physical and emotional stressors. It is too many stressors on the body over time that lead to adrenal fatigue. So the way we take care of adrenal fatigue and make sure it doesn't happen or it doesn't get worse is we start to remove as many of those physical and emotional stressors as we can to take pressure off the adrenal glands so they can regenerate and they can work properly, right? Now, for some of us, some of those things aren't going away, right? Maybe there's a few stressors you do still have, or maybe you have some physical stressors like an injury or a surgery. If there are limitations to things that we can't remove, that's why we support with things like herbs and lifestyle changes to make sure that our adrenals have enough capacity to work properly. But at the end of the day, the two things that cause adrenal fatigue are too many physical stressors, and we'll talk about what those are, and too many emotional stressors at the same time, that your adrenals get to the point where they just can't do it anymore, right? And sometimes you feel like that. Have you ever felt like that physically in your body? You're like, I just got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't feel like I can handle one more thing. I can't handle one more stress. I can't handle one more illness in my family or whatever it is. When you get to that point where physically your brain's saying like, oh, I can't do this anymore, that's a good sign you hit adrenal fatigue, right? So signs and symptoms of adrenal fatigue. Tell me in the comments if you have any of these. Number one is fatigue, even if you've had enough rest, right? So this is the fatigue of like, I slept 8 hours last night and I woke up and I'm still exhausted. Like I can't make it through the day. Waking up still tired is a good sign of adrenal fatigue, as well as intermittent crashes throughout the day. So do you have that time like 2 p.m. like I hit a wall? I want to sleep. I want to lay down and have a nap. Like I can't make it through the rest of my day. And maybe that happens 2 or 3 times during the day for you. That's a pretty big sign that we're having some insufficiency issues inside the adrenal glands. So fatigue that's really heavy, and even if you're well rested. Number 2 is brain fog, big time, right? Or you're starting to lose the ability to multitask. Do you ever feel like you used to be really good at doing several things, or like your kids could be talking in the background and you could be doing something else and you could be on the phone, and then all of a sudden you're like, if too many things are going on at once, my nervous system gets so overstimulated, I cannot deal with that. Do you know that feeling? Or I made a joke about it the other day, but it's like you're driving and the music is too loud, so you can't look at the directions, and you're so overwhelmed by things that should be simple tasks start to feel way more overwhelming. That is a huge sign of adrenal fatigue. If your body is not handling these minor stressors anymore, that's not a great sign. So brain fog or inability to multitask, feeling like simple tasks become really difficult, that's huge. Next one is cravings, particularly for sweet and salty, because your adrenal glands require some form of carbohydrates for energy, but they also want the minerals from the salty to function better. So if you're not normally somebody who craves sweet and salty, and you feel like, you know, over the last few months, I've just really wanted anything sweet or anything salty, that could be a sign that your adrenal glands are asking for more support. They're asking for more energy because they're not getting it themselves. They're looking for external sources. So if you've developed any of those newer cravings or they've been getting worse, those could be signs that your adrenals are starting to struggle. Lack of joy or things that used to make you really happy just don't feel the same anymore. So the way I describe this to people is like, do you ever feel like you're not depressed, but you're definitely not joyful, right? And a lot of women feel like this. Like, I have nothing to be upset about, right? I love my life. I love everything that's going on, but things that used to really, like going out to lunch with friends that I used to be really excited about, I don't really want to do it anymore. Or, you know, you have to really push yourself to be joyful or lighthearted. That is a big sign of adrenal fatigue, because when your body is struggling to get you through daily function, it's going to start downregulating some of those big spikes of joy and energy and all the things that normally we would just be able to have easily. So it's that, you know, not fully depressed. And some people do get depression with adrenal fatigue. That's very real as well. But the most I hear is that kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like lost my zest for life, like lackluster with the things that are going on. That's a big sign of adrenal fatigue. Another one's weight gain, unexplained mostly, right? So I hear this a lot. It's like, I didn't change anything. I'm not doing anything different. I'm not eating more. Like, I could understand if I like binge ate and now I gained this 15 pounds, but I didn't. Like, my life hasn't changed at all. And I'm just slow and steadily putting on more weight. That happens because your body uses those fat cells to give you more energy, right? Fat is a great energy source. So if you're not getting energy from your adrenals, your body needs to put on fat to help you make more energy. So it's going to slowly add more fat cells. And that's that kind of slow, steady, like, hey, I don't know what happened, but I just gained 15 pounds out of nowhere. That's a huge symptom of adrenal fatigue. Also dizziness, or if you feel like, you know, you get up and you get lightheaded, or going up the stairs, muscle weakness or fatigue and dizziness, like going from sitting to standing or up the stairs. That's another pretty good sign of adrenal fatigue or adrenal insufficiency, as well as having things like true imbalances. Like maybe your thyroid has always been fine, and then you go and all of a sudden your thyroid numbers are out of whack, or your blood sugars aren't stabilizing, or you find yourself really shaky if you're not eating enough food, or you're having spikes in your blood pressure. Remember, your adrenal glands are responsible for helping a lot of those functions. So any new symptoms that are popping up that could show signs of stress, blood sugar issues, blood pressure issues, thyroid issues, likely there is also some adrenal issues going on that's also contributing to that. So what I want you mostly to focus on is think about your adrenals. Yes, there might be other things that are off as well, your thyroid, your blood pressure, your hormones, but don't forget your adrenals because they need to be well functioning for all of those other areas to be working properly. So if you have any of those symptoms, you're in the right place. We're going to talk about what that looks like. We're going to talk about what to do with that. And then let's talk about causes. So mainly we said stress, right? Physical and emotional stress. So let's hit the emotional stress first. That's the one I think people are the most just familiar with, right? We know about stress. We know about emotions. So things like having too busy of a schedule, things like overextending yourself and not having clear boundaries, but also any type of emotional trauma. If you've had a loss, if you've had a life change, if you've had a divorce, if you've had a really stressful season, those are all things that are going to put stress on your adrenal glands. So I'm going to start teaching you the 3 things we're going to implement immediately to support our adrenals. And one of the most important things is making sure daily you are protecting at least 20 minutes, right? I'm not asking for 2 hours, but you need to protect 20 minutes of your time where you get to sit and allow your nervous system to calm down. So if you can't remove the stressors, right? You can't get rid of your kids. You can't quit your job. You can't, we're not just going to poof, they magically go away. That's okay. There are things you can do to protect your adrenals and your nervous system, even when you're in the presence of those stressors. But what I want you to think about in terms of that is, have you had prolonged exposure to emotional stress, right? Has this been like decades of a stressful job, things going on with family members? Has there been major life changes? If you've been in a season where there has been a prolonged exposure to that level of stress, you really have to consider testing your adrenals and seeing what those look like, because likely after long-term stress, you're going to have adrenal issues. I mean, that's their job, right? So if that's you and you know you've had prolonged exposure to stressors, highly suggest testing your adrenal glands. And we're going to talk about testing and how to properly test your adrenals in just a second. So that's the emotional stress part, right? We're familiar with that. We know what it is. But I just want you thinking, like, have I been under extra or prolonged emotional stress? Because if the answer is yes, then we're definitely going to want to start addressing some adrenal function. Number 2 is the one I feel like is least addressed, and that's physical stressors. And sometimes these are the things you can't see. So common physical stressors that create adrenal imbalance include chronic infections like Epstein-Barr or gut bacteria or yeast overgrowth in the gut. Those are stressors on the body that over time, if your body has to be fighting off a virus or a bacteria or a yeast all day, every day, it's not going to have a lot of energy left over to help regenerate adrenal function. So any type of chronic infections and overgrowth will lead eventually to some type of adrenal imbalance. Every single time. You can't leave those types of stressors in the body and expect them not to affect the glands that regulate our stress. So chronic infections are huge. And those are things you would definitely want to test for. Epstein-Barr is through a blood draw. I'm a big fan of doing a comprehensive stool sample. Your microbiome, your gut, they have so many functions, and a well-functioning gut microbiome will absolutely help adrenal function all day, every day. So if you've not been tested for Epstein-Barr or a comprehensive stool sample, that would be a great place to start. The next one is if you have physical stressors like a thyroid issue, right? Do you have hypothyroid? Do you have hyperthyroid? Having long-term thyroid imbalance is going to negatively impact your adrenals. Now, here's something I need you to know. If you have a thyroid issue, especially if you're on thyroid medication, on the thyroid medication website, if you go to the Synthroid website and you look up contraindications, within the first 3 contraindications, it's going to say adrenal insufficiency, which means if you have adrenal insufficiency or adrenal fatigue, they shouldn't have put you on that medication without addressing your adrenals at the same time. But like I asked in the beginning, if you're on a thyroid medication, how many of you had your adrenal glands tested? Probably none of you. Like, that's insanity. So at bare minimums, if you're on a thyroid medication, you better get your adrenals tested and make sure you're supporting any dysfunction over there so that your thyroid can actually do what it's supposed to do. And even your medication, if you're on it, will be more beneficial to your body if your adrenals are working properly. So if you're on a thyroid medication and you haven't had your adrenals tested, that is your first step. You do that immediately. It is incredibly important. So thyroid imbalance is another physical stressor to the body, especially with unmanaged adrenal issues. We also have things like hormone imbalance. Hormone imbalance is huge. Now, I'm going to share with you my favorite test for adrenal glands, and the test that I test for adrenals actually also tests your hormones because they're directly related, right? Like, you have to test all of these things. If you've never watched my masterclass called the Women's Health Trifecta, there are 3 things every woman has to test, and it's her thyroid, her adrenals, and her hormones tested together because they work together. Not just one. You can't just check your thyroid and think that's the only thing off. You can't just check your hormones and forget about your adrenals. The 3 of those things work together: thyroid, hormone, and adrenals. That's your women's health trifecta. So if you've never had your hormones properly tested, you're probably missing a huge stressor on your adrenal glands, because if you have hormone imbalance, that's a physical stress on your body. Guess what has to take more effort, more jobs over, because your hormones aren't working? Your adrenal glands have to step up and work harder, which eventually causes them to fatigue, right? That's the true cause of adrenal fatigue, is adrenals working too hard over time. We never give them a break. We never support them. We never help them. So eventually they get exhausted, right? Just like you would, right? If you're constantly working, no one's helping you. You're taking on a bunch of jobs you're not supposed to be doing. No one's picking up their slack on the other side of things. Wouldn't you get tired? Right? Like, that's exactly how your adrenals feel. I feel like the adrenal glands are like the unsung hero. It's like the mom who feels like she gets no support, or she gets no, just like, no one's noticing the amount of work she's doing, right? That's your adrenal glands. Like, they're doing everything behind the scenes, but nobody stops to say, hey, how are you doing? Like, that's exactly the situation we get in. So if you've ever felt like that in life, just know that's exactly what your adrenal glands feel like. So let's take a break. Let's go and see and check in on them and say, hey, adrenals, how you doing? How can I support you better so you can continue to do all of these jobs without burning out, right? And that's just a life lesson across the board. That's what we should be doing for ourselves, for others, for our adrenal glands, for our health. Take a step back, check in, and see what we have to change or adapt so that we can help ourselves. So let's go back for a second. The physical stressors: chronic infections, Epstein-Barr, bacterial infections, yeast infections. I'll also add in parasites to that one. If you have a hormone imbalance or a thyroid imbalance, those are other very physical stressors to the body. And the next one is any toxic load. So if you've had like mold exposure or toxins in your environment, mold is more common than most people realize. Those are all things that are going to put stress on the body and eventually cause some type of adrenal issues. So for most people, we always start looking with the most likely of the causes, which for me, with most women, we always check infections, we always check hormone imbalance, we always check thyroid and adrenal glands, right? Start there, start figuring out what are my main triggers. Because here's the thing, our bodies are made to manage some level of stress. That's what our adrenal glands do. So it's not that you have to have 0 stressors, but the least possible, right? Remove as many as we can, and then get our adrenals functioning well so that they can adapt to the stressors that aren't going anywhere. That's the name of the game, right? So remove as many as we possibly can. Start with the most likely, which is the gut, hormones, thyroid, adrenals. Those are the 4 keys to really taking as much physical stress off the body as possible. If you want help getting testing for those areas, we do the stool sample. I'm about to show you the hormone and adrenal mapping test. You can just put in the comments, I want testing. You can DM me and I can get the testing kits sent right to you. We can get you on a call with one of our doctors. If you have never had testing for your hormones and your adrenals, for your gut, that is imperative. Put that in the comments that you want testing, and then we'll be able to reach out and get that for you. So let me show you really quick my favorite test for adrenals and hormones. I'm going to show you 2 different patterns. So there are two types of adrenal patterns. This is actually just one small part of what's called the Dutch test, DUTCH. It's called dried urine testing for comprehensive hormones. That's what it stands for. But this is how I test hormones and adrenals. It is tested through urine over 24 hours. When it comes to adrenal testing, that is very important information. You cannot get a 1-point blood draw of your cortisol and expect to know the function of your adrenal glands. So if all they have tested on you is a 1-point cortisol draw, you missed a ton of information because your adrenal pattern is supposed to change over time during the day. That's what it's designed to do. So if you only get 1 point and you only know one snapshot of that day, you are missing so much information. So your adrenal glands typically will be one of these two patterns if your body is in stress. This first one, if you can see, the red line is way outside of the graph. So the gray shaded area is the graph of what your adrenals should do. So your adrenals, your cortisol should be moderately low in the morning, kind of baseline. And then you should have a nice spike mid-morning. This is what wakes you up. This is what gives you energy. It turns on your metabolism. It starts your fat burning. It starts your immune system function. You're supposed to have a nice spike mid-morning. And then it's supposed to gradually come down over the afternoon to get to the lowest point at night so you fall asleep easily. You're not stressed out. Your mind isn't racing. That's the ideal pattern. Now, when you're in acute stress, so for the most part, I find people with really high cortisol patterns a little bit earlier in life. So this is when you're still running on adrenaline, stressed out, going fast, doing all the things, and you'll have this higher cortisol spike. So this red line is well above the adrenal graph. Typically, symptoms for that are going to be more like anxiety, wired but tired, right? I'm exhausted all day, but I go to lay down at night and my mind's racing and I can't sleep. And I feel like I have a to-do list that's never ending and it's hard for me to focus on things. That really happens when we have high cortisol. But unfortunately, what happens over time, just like anything else, if you run on high cortisol for too long, eventually it's going to crash. Your body cannot sustain that level of stress over time. So normally, when most women get to me, they've already gone through this high stress because typically in this high stress, you're also running on adrenaline. So you don't quite realize how bad you feel yet. But after a couple of years of running at that high level, this happens. I'm going to show you a couple of hormones here in a second, but if you'll look down in the bottom left corner, if you'll notice, this red line is all the way at the bottom. It is not even in the graph most of the day. This, my friends, is adrenal fatigue and adrenal insufficiency, which are you can test for. This poor woman wakes up and her cortisol is below the normal range when she first wakes up, which means she sleeps 8 to 10 hours and is still exhausted. She gets no spike mid-morning at all, which means her energy never turns on. Her metabolism never turns on. Her energy, her immune system, she's dragging the whole entire day. When she's supposed to have that nice kind of come down in the mid-afternoon, it barely moves. And then for her, the only time it comes up is at night. So she ends up feeling her only burst of energy right before she goes to bed. So it doesn't feel like she gets well rested either, but is exhausted all day long. This right here is a pattern of a woman who's burnt out, who has massive brain fog, who's gaining weight and doesn't know why, whose thyroid medication dose keeps having to change and they can't figure it out, who never feels better even if she changes her medications, even if she tries the nutrition plan, even if she does more exercise at the gym, she ends up feeling worse because her body physically in this state cannot handle one more stressor. Right? And some of you are out there right now, and that's what you feel like. If you are having those symptoms, if you feel like your body is so tired, so burnt out, and you have not had your adrenals tested in urine over at least 24 hours, this is your first step. So if you want to get a Dutch test, just drop it in the comments. Say, I want testing, I want a Dutch test. We'll reach out to you. We'll coordinate getting it in your hands because this is the most important test for a woman to have. Because not only does it test your adrenals, but it maps out all of your hormones. This is just page 1. We get a 10-page report. This is a very detailed test, but we're going to get to see your hormone imbalances. We're going to get to see your adrenal patterns. We're also going to get to see neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. Is your brain chemicals working properly? These are all things that influence your stress response. And on the Dutch test, we get to see all of that. It is such a beautiful snapshot of what's going on with the endocrine system. So if you've never had this test, this is the place to start. 100%. Every single woman needs a Dutch test because, see, people want the Dutch test. We will reach out to you. Just let me know in the comments. And here's the most important thing. I'm about to give you guys some really great tips on things you can do to start balancing your hormones and your adrenals. However, everything needs to be individualized to you when you start getting into detailed information, because the woman who had the first adrenal pattern and the woman who had the second adrenal pattern need two completely different things, right? So the things I'm going to teach you guys just here in a second will be general, will be safe for everybody. But if you want the really detailed, deep dive plan to recover your adrenals fully, you need testing, because it will look different for you. And it has to look different for you, right? Your pattern is not the same as my pattern. And even if our adrenals look identical, well, what if my estrogen is high and yours is low? What if my progesterone is low and yours is high? All of those little pieces of information will change how we address your case. So testing is imperative if you want the right recommendations for long-lasting changes, right? So things I'm about to teach you start immediately. It will start giving you some relief. It will start getting you on the right track. But truly, proper testing is the place to start. So drop in the comments, send me a message on any of my social media platforms. We'll be able to coordinate to get you the right testing. And based on your health history and what you're looking for, we'll individualize what are the best tests for you as well. So just let me know in the comments if you are someone who is struggling and needs that detailed level of testing to start finding your answers. And I will tell you, for me, the Dutch test was a game changer. It was one of the things that I didn't consider hormones and adrenals as a big part of my problem. And when I saw my results for the first time, it was shocking how I was only at 28 years old. I was already in menopausal ranges for my hormones. My adrenals were all over the place, things I would have never imagined as a 28-year-old woman. So even if you're younger, still hormones and adrenals are still such an important piece of the healing puzzle. Okay, let's go through. I have a list here of some of my favorite things. I'm going to reference back so I don't forget anything to tell you guys. Here's how we're going to start supporting our adrenal glands. This is fine. The things I'm about to teach you are perfectly acceptable for anybody, whether you have high cortisol, low cortisol. I'm giving you really great, just general lifestyle recommendations. For detailed, deeper levels of recommendations, please get your testing first before you start any other protocols or process for your adrenal glands. I know there are a lot of adrenal supplements out there and adrenal protocols, and I'm cautioning you right now, if you don't know your pattern, a lot of those could be detrimental and could cause more harm than good, because someone with low cortisol needs something completely different than someone with high cortisol. So one of the things I never suggest is doing any type of adrenal cortex, anything that has DHEA in it, anything that has desiccated or dried adrenals. You want to be so very careful starting any of those if you have not tested your adrenal glands first. But I will give you some recommendations of things you can start. So number one, the safest thing to start supporting as far as your adrenal glands and supplements is your stress response, right? We know we have stress, regardless if you're in the high stress state of too much cortisol or the low stress state of not enough. Every single busy woman should support her stress response. Now, there are two layers to this. Something a lot of people don't realize about your adrenal glands is the outside of your adrenal glands are adrenal tissue, but the inside of your adrenal glands are neurologic tissue. It's similar to brain tissue, which is so cool. So you have both the adrenal stress support, and then inside of your adrenal glands, it's almost like a mini brain. So to get the best natural balance for your adrenals, that's perfect for everybody, because that doesn't change, right? You have adrenal tissue, you have neurologic tissue. So when I support adrenal glands without knowing someone's pattern, I support both of those things. So something very gentle, like a nice organic ashwagandha, is the perfect thing to support the outer layer of the adrenal glands. And then something to support the neurotransmitters, the actual neurologic tissue will help support the inside of the adrenal glands, just giving them building blocks that they already need. So for me, I have my stress management bundle. I'm going to put that link in the comments as well. That is exactly what it is. The stress management bundle is really the adrenal support bundle. That's what you need it for, right? You're going to feel a reduction in your stress response, but more so it's designed to support both layers of the adrenal glands. So there's the gentle adaptogenic support with ashwagandha, and then joyful is the second one that's actually support for your nervous system, for your neurologic tissue. It helps brain support, mood support, and really helps function of those adrenal glands. So if you don't know what to do for your adrenal glands, you don't know where to start, but you want to start managing your stress response, adding that stress management bundle is safe and appropriate across the board while you wait for testing, while you find your other answers. That's such a great place to start. I personally take that bundle pretty much every day all year long because I have a busy life. I have 2 kids, we have 3 animals, I have a husband, I have a full-time job, we have sports, we just live a busy life. So I constantly just support my adrenal function day in and day out. So that is such a great place. I'll put the link for the stress management bundle. It's 2 supplements, powerful and joyful. What woman doesn't want to be powerful and joyful? But specifically, it's to really help support adrenal function. That's piece number 1. Piece number 2, I mentioned it briefly. You are going to give me 20 minutes every day that you prioritize stress management. Whether that means meditating, whether that means stretching, whether that means doing breath work, whether that means journaling, whether that means 20 minutes of quiet Bible time, whatever it is for you, you are going to prioritize and commit 20 minutes a day that you put solid boundaries around that. People do not disturb you. This is your time. However it fits in is great. I tell most people first thing in the day because it's the time you're least likely to get interrupted or forget about it. But I want you to commit to 20 minutes every single day where you allow your body time to relax. That's the next one. Number 3, I want you to start making sure we're really taking care of our circadian rhythm, which means trying to get to bed earlier and trying to wake up about the same time. I know you're tired, but trying not to just keep letting your sleep patterns go all over the place. I stayed up really late, then I slept in, or I didn't sleep well, so then I slept longer, or getting up really early. The better we can keep our sleep and wake patterns steady, the better our adrenals will be. And here's the key, is most of your adrenal just rehab, your adrenal healing happens in the sleep you get before midnight. Ladies, if you are night owls, did you hear me? You regenerate most of that neurologic tissue in the sleep you get before midnight. I need you trying to go to bed around 10 p.m. so that you're getting enough regenerative sleep for your adrenal glands and then being able to wake up with the light like we were supposed to. That's going to help. So if you have an odd pattern and that's not possible for you, it will be even more important for you to support with some supplements if you can't do that. But if you can start trying to do that, sleeping before midnight is hugely important for adrenal function. And then lastly, to start removing any additional physical stressors that we can immediately, let's start making some nutrition changes. If we can remove sugars, dyes and toxins, processed food, and gluten. Those are my 5. Start there, right? We can get more particular. There's more types of food changes we can make, but the 5 things are the most toxic for our body. Sugars, especially processed sugars, just commit to yourself. I'm going to limit, reduce, or eliminate as much sugar as I can. Dyes, toxins, so if it's coming out of a box or a can, commit to whole foods, things that are truly from the earth, full of good, rich nutrients. That alone will take stress off your body. Gluten is highly toxic, whether you're allergic or not. We're not talking about celiac. We're not talking about gluten sensitivity. I'm talking about wheat in North America. Gluten in North America is toxic and creates a major inflammatory response. If you have not gone gluten-free yet, or at least tried to significantly reduce your gluten intake, I highly recommend you do that. And then adding back minerals, right? Your adrenals need minerals. Easiest way to do this is adding 2 to 3 pinches of Celtic sea salt in your water every day. I talk about this a lot. It's so easy, it's cheap, but your adrenals need minerals, and they are one of the glands that use up a lot of the minerals in your body. So add a couple of pinches of Celtic sea salt to your water every day to really help strengthen that adrenal function. So just to recap the things we're going to do to start supporting our adrenals, we're going to get the stress management bundle because who are you kidding? You're stressed. You need the support. We're going to get testing, right? That's another one to add in. If you haven't tested your adrenal glands, you absolutely need to. We are going to start giving ourselves 20 minutes a day of quiet time to regenerate. We're going to focus on getting to bed before midnight, right? Really taking care of our circadian rhythm. We're going to minimize toxins from our food, specifically the sugars, the dyes, the colors, the glutens, really trying to get back to more of a whole foods diet. And then adding those minerals like Celtic sea salt to your water every day are beautiful places to start, safe and effective for everybody. But if you have symptoms, if you're struggling, if you're tired, if you have thyroid issues, if you have autoimmune conditions, if you have hormone imbalances, I highly recommend getting proper testing. There is nothing more effective than knowing your pattern and your levels and being able to make a plan that's individualized to you to get long-term sustainable results. So if you want that detailed level of testing, drop it in the comments, message me on social media. I'll put the links to get that stress management bundle. I highly recommend you start on that. You will notice a difference and you will feel the support immediately, just getting those good building blocks for adrenal function. And then if you have any additional questions, I love answering your questions. Drop them in the comments, message me. I will help you out with any of those things. But thank you so much for joining. We'll be back next week again with another live show. And make sure you're following me on Instagram and TikTok. I do tons of daily content on there as well. And we'll see you next week.